Hello and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. In today's video we're going to be looking at a pair of teas from Yunnan sourcing, and they are both oolongs made from Jin Guan Yin. It's AAA grade, imperial grade oolong tea. On my left we have the spring 2025 and on my right the autumn 2025. Now anybody who's familiar with Jin Guan Yin might say, hang on, haven't we missed something? Because I've looked at a number of the Anshi greener oolongs. We've looked at the Huang Guan Yin, which is the basis for this. No, Huang Jan Gui, I've got them mixed up. And we've also looked at Ben Shan, and we've looked at Mao Xie. So we've looked at quite a few, but we haven't looked at the big daddy of them all, Tie Guan Yin. Instead, we've moved to this, and it's because I had a chance without spending too much time or breaking the bank to get enough teas together for one of these little cultivars in disguise. As we said in the introductory video, it's not strictly speaking a cultivar. It's a tea, let's put it that way, that's created by grafting one tea varietal onto another. I think it's the Tie Guan Yin is grafted onto the Huang to get that the right way round. So that's what we're going to be looking at with this tea. We're now going to take a look at the tea leaves for the spring and the autumn. We're not going to show the packaging because it's standard portioned out packaging from Yunnan sourcing. And then we're going to have a dual review of Western brewing for this tea, Western/Teapot. And then we will have an individual Gongfu session for each of them. So let's move on to part two. See you in a mo. Here we are looking at the tea from Yunnan sourcing. It's Imperial Jin Guan Yin, AAA grade Anshi Oolong tea. And this is the autumn 2025 harvest. So it's a green oolong, lower oxidation oolong made from the Jin Guan Yin. And the Imperial refers to a grading standard. The beads of tea leaves themselves, relatively uniform in colour, predominantly forest green with some paler emerald green edges to them, but just taking a close look to see if I can see any of the brown that you get where the stalks of each individual leaf is kind of rolled into the bead. I'm not seeing that. The size of the beads is pretty uniform, about 1/2 centimetre as standard. The smell of the leaves is rather intriguing. It's almost exclusively a strong herbal note. I'm just going to, if you hear a rattling noise, I'm trying to see if it's just the way the leaves have settled in the packaging. Nope, what I'm getting is a slight sweet edge to what is otherwise a very, very brisk kind of herbal element. So let's move on to seeing how that manifests itself in the brewed tea. Back in a mo. This is the spring 2025 Imperial Jin Guan Yin. You might have expected that we would have these two clips, if we want to put it that way, the other way round in chronological order, but I opened up the autumn packet by mistake first. Take a look at these leaves. I would say these beads are a bit smaller. They're relatively uniform in size, but I would say on average they are below 5 mils, more like 3 mils, 2 or 3 mils, so definitely slightly smaller. In terms of what I can see, the colour scheme I would say is even more edging towards predominantly forest green than the autumn leaves. There are some paler parts, but once again I'm not seeing that telltale brown of the bud, of the leaf stalk tucked into the bead. That's not to suggest that these leaves have been clipped to competition standard. I'm not saying that, just reporting on what I can see. The smell of the leaves is slightly sweeter and fruitier than the autumn one, but that's still that strong, brisk herbal scent. But I would say there's something like a very, very green apple scent with a hint of apple skin thrown in. That's probably the bitterness, that herbal bitterness. But slightly softer, slightly less brisk, and with that bit of sweetness and a bit of fruit thrown in. So let's see how this comes across in the finished tea. Back in a mo. Hello and welcome to the next part of our video where we are going to have a Western or teapot style brewing and reviewing of our two teas for today. Reminder, this is the Jin Guan Yin, and on my left we have the Oolong version from spring 2025, and on my right an Oolong version from autumn 2025. They're both from Gande village in Anxi, so we're trying to isolate as many variables as we can. They've been brewed in the same way, to the same brewing parameters. Much higher, well, I don't say much, but a higher tea to water ratio and a higher temperature. That's what was recommended by various YouTube videos and also some websites. So the proportion of tea is 5 grams to 300 mils of water in both cases, and it's 95 degrees centigrade for 3 minutes. And I have to say, there are some wonderful smells wafting from here. It helps that I've got both of them wafting at me. So this is the spring. So what we're going to do is we'll compare the colours, because that doesn't involve any sort of chopping and changing. From my point of view, granted they're slightly different vessels, I would say the colours are pretty much the same. This one may be slightly more yellow, this one's slightly more green, but other than that, pretty much the same. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. So I'm going to put the autumn over here. So what I can smell is the spring. That's a nice sentence. Smell the spring. And then we'll do the same with the autumn. There is something very heady there. I remember the Huang. I'm terrified I'll just mispronounce it. So if I call it the Huang, then I know which one I'm talking about. The smell, it is rich, and there is something vegetal, something creamy, but there's something as profoundly floral as its predecessor that's just sort of sitting as a kind of top note. So that's really interesting, but it's not a full-blown great mass of sweet florals, anything like that, but they're definitely sitting there as part of the whole picture. Ooh, now that one is similar, but with a lot more cream, a lot more cream. Yeah, I would say that. Do you know, if you ever walk into a florist shop, you're not just smelling flowers, you're smelling all the sap. The air is kind of that full of that green sap smell. That's what I'm getting from this. Plus a lot of cream, plus some florals. But the florals, to be fair, are just part of the whole picture, as it is with the spring. So I'm going to once again put the autumn over there so that I'm not smelling it whilst I am taking a sample of this. But I'm really looking forward to these. So here's the spring. It's hot, 95, so I'm just pour out a little at a time. Let it cool, then I'll do the same. I've seen some videos, and the guys at Yunnan sourcing sometimes take 1 cup, pour the tea out, then immediately pour it into another. These are quite thick walls, so hopefully they'll soak up the heat pretty quickly. So this is the spring. Not really picking up much on the cup. I can see why they were talking about higher temperatures and water to leaf to water ratio. Yeah, there's that. There's something of that florist shop in there. It's light and not light in the sense of being insipid. I don't mean that, but it's light. It's refreshing. That floral shop, florals and sap qualities there. Not particularly intense, but it's definitely there, adding to the picture. And there's a bit of cream in there as well. Do you know, I could probably have brewed that for either longer or hotter still. That's pretty resilient stuff, given that's 95 degrees. But some aspect of it are lingering on the palate, to be fair. Okay, so some of that floral and sappiness and a bit of cream. Let's see what the autumn, I beg your pardon, has to offer once I've spilled half of it on the table. In case it bugs you the way it bugs me, I have ordered 3 jugs that are identical so that I can review without spilling everywhere, but also without annoying me that they're not the same. Some of that vegetal quality is coming through in the cup. Lingering a lot more on the palate. The cream is lingering. But it's florals and it's sap, but with more cream. Definitely comes through on the cup once there's enough of it to sort of rise above the rim of the cup. Some florals, a bit of sap, and cream. There's definitely more cream. But again, as with the spring, it's very harmonious. It's not one, then the next, and the next. They're all sort of working together. But again, I feel as if I could have brewed it hotter or longer. But they're really, really tasty. I do like that creaminess along with the florals, sort of. The creaminess is there in the taste, but it's adding body, if you see what I mean, while still keeping them refreshing. So those are both very interesting, and in my own time, I will definitely experiment. I might use the leaves from these steepings, reuse them. Obviously, I'd probably brew them for longer anyway for a second steeping, but I'll up the temperature and see what comes out from that. So that's the first part of our tasting and review done. Let's move on to the Gongfu session. See you soon. Hello and welcome to the penultimate part of our video, where we are going to have a Gongfu session to review the Spring 2025 Harvest Oolong version of Jin Guan Yin, the Imperial AAA grade from Yunnan Sourcing. Excuse me. I've learned something from the Western brewing, which is that this tea is not exactly impervious to heat and water, but pretty resilient. So what we're going to do is, first of all, go with 4 grams of tea per 50 ml steeping, and the water's at 95. That doesn't seem up to the job. We'll bump it up, but I feel 95 gives us a little bit more control. We can bump it up if we need to do. And I anticipate longer steepings. Maybe the first one we won't even bother looking until 35 seconds. What kind of flavors are we hoping to bring out here? Well, there was some creaminess and there was floral qualities, and there was a kind of sap, florist shop sap, that kind of vegetal, but still very light scent that you get in the air in a florist shop. Cut flowers, basically. So, without any further delay, let's make a start. Got my stopwatch here. Everything's pre-warmed as always, and we will see what we can do. We'll start looking at 35. Don't know why I'm pointing at you. There we go. I wanted the lid on to keep the heat in as much as possible. Normally I like to look to see if there's any popping, but I'm going to guess we won't be seeing popping in a hurry with this tea. I'm also thinking we should maybe have the screen looking even more crowded. I should have a notepad here. I'm left-handed. A notepad here so I can note the temperatures for the steepings, the timings. Not a lot there. The sap's actually there. We'll give that 45. That was interesting. That was interesting. A really strong sap scent. Yeah, really, that's what it is. It's cut flowers. Not necessarily the floral quality, but that sap quality. Yeah, that's really what it is. Okay, the leaves are, well, there are beads at the bottom that haven't unfurled at all, or at least they're barely soaked, and the leaves on the top have started to unfurl more. What I might do is just give that a bit of a mix. Bring the unfurled to the top. Colour-wise, we're already past that white tea colour. There's already a bit of yellow in that. Gold yellow. Gold on top of silver, should I say. Yeah, it's sap. It's sap. Maybe something slightly floral. Yeah, on the cup, just sap. Yeah, that's what's come through. I'm sorry, I'm not, I just mean to smile rather than laugh out loud. It's sap. It's slightly herbal, slightly bitter, only slightly, not in a bad way. Just vegetal, little thin, but not really. It's already got some body. I presume that's what the creaminess is doing. Just a hint of cream already. All right. Well, I wasn't expecting that after just 45 seconds. Let's push a little harder and see if we can get, at the very least, into the outright florals. We'll start looking maybe 45. Yes, I wasn't expecting that, but that's what I love about Gongfu sessions. And I'm the only person in the household who drinks tea at least non-herbal or non-fruit tea. So I don't have anybody to share Gongfu sessions with unless I take the tea with me to somebody else's or to meetings. I've been known to take the tea making kit that I showed off on one video. Okay, there's something on top of the herbal there, the sap. Let's go with 55 maybe. See what that smells like. We'll go with a minute. All right. This is the minute. That's a good sign. I promise this is no word of a lie. Yeah, there's something on top of the sap. Hopefully it's a more distinct kind of floral aspect. No word of a lie, it was making my mouth water, which is always a good sign. I think there's a technical name for that, but it wasn't sweetness doing it. Yeah, there's cream and there's sap. But the florals are still just... You've walked out to the floor. You haven't yet walked into the florist shop, or you've just walked out. A little more yellow, a little more gold, a little less silver. Yeah, that's what it is. You stood outside the florist shop, and you haven't yet got a face full of flowers. Although there's more flowers there. No, the florals aren't there yet. There's still plenty of sap, plenty of cream. It's light. There is some florals there, but it's not very strong. It's just more of the sappy quality and more cream. Let's bump the temperature up for our final steeping. How are the leaves coming across? I don't think there are any beads that haven't unfurled there, although you can probably tell they're a little softer. They're still slightly leathery, so they've still got some soaking to do. Okay. And maybe a touch more water, just to make sure these now predominantly unfurled leaves have actually... There's enough water there for them. Right. Let's see where we get for about 50 seconds. The last thing I want is tannins, or that overcooked quality. but it does feel as if we're just not pushing this tea hard enough in whatever direction brings out the florals. They're there. The leaves definitely got them. It's just, is it the higher temperature? Is it the longer steeping? Is it less water? Is it more tea? There's something that's going to hopefully make the florals come out. So we're going to start looking at 45. There's something hovering. Right, we'll take this to a minute, no more. Or at least we'll look at a minute, should I say. Okay, no change there. Let's do that. That's a minute and 5 seconds. 65 seconds. As if you didn't know a minute and 5 seconds was 65 seconds. The sappy quality is stepped back. It's more vegetal, but not a dull kind of vegetal cooked quality to it. Let's see what this is like. The leaves are, yeah, they're definitely softer. They've lost that kind of leathery quality. So everything has benefited. You can see how much they're filling the gaiwan. They benefited from that more water. Okay, let's have a look at the colour. Yeah, there's green has crept into that gold colour. Maybe, yeah, there you go. The green has definitely crept in. Ooh, now. There's florals. That's good. Needed the heat for that, obviously. So when we do the autumn, we may just start at 100. But we'll have to watch the steeping times, obviously. Yep. Florals. Here goes. Hooray! It's lovely and well balanced. There's definitely florals there. It's a very, I'm not quite sure what word to describe it. It's not very sweet florals. It's, I'm trying to think what kind of flower has a perfumey note, but it isn't super sweet. I don't really know. I'm not very up on my flowers. As in one of these previous videos, in my line of work, I know what lilies smell like, but not many others with any detail. Yeah, there's florals there. Now the tea's cooling, it's a lot stronger. Yes. Florals. Very smooth still. Touch of cream coming at the end there. I couldn't tell you what kind of flower, but that's really nice because it's not super sweet and it's not cooked vegetable. Yeah, you're not chasing the florals at that point. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so as with the Western, there's cream, there's body, there's sweetness, there's sappy quality, the first steepings, and maybe that's what comes out first, or maybe that's simply the slightly lower temperature. I mean, it's only slightly lower. So we got sap, we got greenness, we got freshness, and then we get the florals when we bump up to 100 for the third steeping. A very nice showing. Let me show you one of the leaves. Yeah, look at that for a green oolong. Look at that, barely any oxidation just around the edges. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so let's not make this any longer than it has to be. There's nothing on the wet leaves that's bringing out florals, but yeah, there's definitely floral notes there at the end. Takes a lot of steeping and certainly a high temperature. Wonderful stuff. Let's see what 100 degrees centigrade does for the autumn harvest. Let's start at 100 for that. Let's move on to our second Gongfu. See you in a moment. Hello and welcome to the final part of our video, which is a Gongfu session to review the the autumn, 2025 harvest of this tea, oolong version that is. To that end, we've learnt our lesson from the Gongfu session for the spring harvest, and we are starting at 100 degrees centigrade. We've got 4 grams of tea. We're using 50 mils per steeping in the smaller gaiwan. Everything is pre-warmed. And with it being 100 degrees centigrade, the leaves responded relatively well by about 45 seconds, but the higher temperature will hopefully bring out the florals quicker, but will probably unfurl the tea quicker as well. So we'll start looking maybe 35. Okay, can't help but look. Yep, some popping there. So we have learnt our lesson. There's florals in there and they're a little elusive unless you have a good high heat. I was just worried about overcooking things, but it's pretty resilient stuff. So that's 30 seconds. We're just past 30. We're going to start looking at 35. Ooh, there's a lot of sweetness there already. Maybe just take that to 45. Yep. Play it safe, or take it to 45. Now what do we have here? Something creamy, something vegetal, something sweet, really sweet. Okay, that should be good. Let's see what this gets us. Sorry, I don't know what to do with the lid. I did see somewhere for sale a stand for a gaiwan lid, presumably at this point in a session, not a review, a session. The colour is white tea, silvery colour with just a hint of yellow, maybe a hint of green actually. But about that, yeah, you saw it just right there. Yep, there's cream, and I think there's florals already there. Lots of cream, loads of cream. Wow. So if you can hear a noise, but the bin men are emptying out the bin on the front, and I don't care how much noise they make, they do a fantastic job. Lots of cream, loads of cream. Cream on the mouthfeel. More vegetal light than flowers just yet. There isn't the sap, there isn't that sappiness. Let's try a bit more of that. That's a surprise. But it's brought out loads of cream, lots of body. The leaves are, there's still some unfurled beads at the bottom, but yeah. The heat hasn't made it unfurl any faster, but it's certainly brought out a different flavour profile. So we need to be careful with that. Let's see where this takes us. Make sure there's enough water to cover everything. There we go. But there's a lot more cream there than with the spring, at least at 100 for that first steeping. Let's see if we can either bring out the sap or ideally straight to the florals. I'm trying to work out what's lingering in the palate, because there's something there. It's not bitter or anything like that. Might be something of that sap is still just sitting there. Just realised I've been talking to myself without the timer on. Great, so that's probably about 10 seconds of me havering. So that means we're now at 20 seconds. It's a good job I don't do this for a job, really, isn't it? I'm not sure I'd earn a living. Although at the time of recording this, I have just hit 100 subscribers. I'm going to do a short thank you video to that effect. Right, that is, in real time, 45. Right. Load of sweetness. Perfuminess. Have we got the elusive florals? Hard to tell on the leaf, just really sweet. A bit of leatheriness still, but only a smidge. All right, colour-wise. More green still, yeah. More green there, yeah. Very creamy, very sweet. Very green, very fresh, not a surprise really. All of what I've just said on the cup, sweet, creamy, vegetal. There we go. There we go. Florals. Very sweet. Floral. Oh yeah. Lots of that lingering on the palate. Excellent. So, oh yeah. It's still a little... I couldn't tell you... It's simply lots of flowers. Put it that way, but definitely flowers. And I love the sweetness, and I love that little bit of body from the creaminess. And I love the way it all works together. That's very satisfying, but once again, without being cloying. Okay, let's do what we did for the third steeping with the spring. Make sure the leaves are covered this time, because they've definitely expanded now. The hazards of this smaller gaiwan, even with a smaller amount of leaf. Right, there we go. You couldn't get much more water in there. So, excellent stuff. And we will check in on the tea at 35. But I'm glad we got the florals. That's what's in the mouth. Florals and cream in the mouth. That's not a bad combination to have sitting on the palate. So there's 35. Hard to tell, really. If I'm being honest, let's just do 45 again, now that there's more water. Looks to be more colour. That's always a good start. Cream and vegetables, or a vegetal note, should I say. The leaves have softened. That's always a good sign. Colour. Oh, definitely more green in there now. Trying to get it so you can see what I can see. There you go. Definitely more green. And the florals are there again. Yay! Florals and cream. That's a great combination. And sweetness, obviously. Yep, got that through on the cup, especially the sweetness. Florals, a lot more body. Not necessarily more intense, but a lot more body to that. Okay. Not overly so, but I didn't even feel as if steeping 1 and 2 was thin, but the body has come through on this steeping. I drank that too hot. Yeah. I'm going to pour that out, let it cool. I got more of the vegetal than the floral there. There's a smaller amount. Really need to let that cool. We're dealing with higher temperatures for one thing. Okay, we'll let that cool slightly, and then we'll be able to conclude. Right. Florals are coming through. That's what I noticed with the Western, by the way. As the temperature dropped, the florals, which had been elusive, really came to the fore. As did the body. The body went up. It was almost Jin Guan levels. Lots of florals, lots of body, Not so much, no, not cream outright on that one. But definitely more floral. This needs to be cooler once you drink it. Okay, so let's sum up. The flavour profile for this tea has got florals, lots of florals, not really able to say it's this kind of flower or the other. Needs higher temperature, needs a good long steeping, even for a Gongfu. Needs more tea to water. And I feel as if it feels like the Huang, but with added body. But it's making the florals, at least the way I've done it here, just that little bit more elusive. Or at least you need to adjust things to bring it out. Okay, is it readily available? Well, I've got multiple varieties of this tea, and I have seen Jin Guan Yin as an oolong in this sense from other vendors. So it's not so rare that it's impossible to get hold of, so there's no problem there. Although, as always, if possible, as a matter of courtesy, I would suggest you go through Yunnan sourcing. I had no trouble, obviously, getting the tea from them. Is it enjoyable? Yes. Funnily enough, it's going to sound like an odd thing to say. I found the sappy element quite intriguing. So if you kept the temperature down, you'd have florals very faintly in the background, and you'd get more of that sappy quality, which with the florals is a really nice florist sharp cut flowers kind of quality. So you might actually try exploring that. Is it easy to brew? Well, if I'd listened to what I'd been told online, just bump everything up, more tea, hotter water, longer steepings. And it hasn't overcooked and it hasn't reacted badly. There's no tannins or anything. But certainly as an green oolong, really, really, really just push everything up. With that proviso, and that's all it is, a hearty recommendation. I've really enjoyed this. It's been very intriguing. And it remains only for me to say happy steeping and God bless.